Hello everybody, this is Moosey Meese, and today we're going to be looking into how to fact check, how to check bias, and some very useful search operators in Google for getting what you really need to find when you need to search for something specific. So the first thing we're going to look at are the search operators. Now if I Google, everybody loves to Google. So a search operator is basically a tool that Google has built into it that lets you refine your searches. So some very commonly used modifiers are the plus symbol, which allows you to search for exactly that word. So if you do plus papaya, everything that comes up has to have the word papaya in it. Now, that's very useful if the word you're searching for has a lot of synonyms, because say for example, if you just search the word good, you're going to get mostly what you wanted. But the problem is every article doesn't have to have the word good. We might have to scroll a while to find an example, but basically it'll search for good and every synonym of good. But if we do the word good with plus before it, now everything that comes up has to have the word good in it. No synonyms, no similar words, just the word good. Now, another similar operator is the quotation marks. So if you encapsulate good times in quotation marks, everything that comes up not only has to have the words good and times, but it has to be in that order. So it couldn't be times good, it couldn't be good is times, it has to be good times. So that's very useful again if, say, for example, you're searching for quite a few different words in your sentence or your search and you're kind of worried that it's going to get jumbled up in the similar words. So kind of the opposite of the plus sign obviously is the minus sign in mathematics as well as searching. So if I wanted to search for good, but I didn't want anything to come up for happiness, the minus sign is the tool we need for that. So minus will ensure that everything that comes up has the word good, because we've included that with the plus, but it will never have the word happiness in it because we've specified that with the minus. So you can see in our search results here, the first one says good definition, morally excellent. Well, let's put the word morally in minus as well and see what happens. Or we can scroll down. Whatever works, right? So when we put morally in there, you'll see that our search results have changed, and the one that was at the top is no longer there because we've told it we don't want any results that have the word morally in it. And of course, the first one did have morally in it. If we go back, morally, right there. Now, of course, this page also probably contains the word morally, and this one probably also does because they disappeared as well. So those are very awesome search modifiers. What if you wanted to find something on a specific website? Well, the one you'd need for that is just site:. So if I do site:facebook.com, everything that comes up has to be on the website facebook.com without exception. So if I did facebook.com plus Frank minus Canada, everything that comes up is going to have Frank in it on the Facebook site, but it'll never be a Canada related page. Now if we change the minus to a plus, now every Frank that comes up has to be in Canada. So we can see the first one is Frank Canada. Now the next modifier is file type. Let's say you were looking for COVID-19. Let's not put that in any marks. That way we don't limit it to whether or not they used a dash or capitals or this or that. So COVID-19 file type .pdf. Oh, unfortunately, nothing came up with that. Let's try refining this a bit. Is it the dot? Yes, it is. So don't include the dot. You just want to include the file type. But yeah, so if we search for this COVID-19 file type, everything that comes up is going to be a PDF file. So let's put in site. I think the who site is just who. Nope. Is it World Health Organization? No. Interesting. Let's do World Health Organization. There we go. It was who.int though. So let's just refine this again. Who.int. All right. So now with this search operation, COVID-19 file type PDF site who.int, everything that comes up is going to be COVID-19 related on the who site, and it's going to be a PDF file. As you can see, that are the only results that came up. So the next search operator is the OR operator. So let's say you wanted to search for COVID-19, or you weren't really sure if they used a dash, so you searched for that. Well, now it can have COVID-19 or it can have COVID-19. It doesn't have to have just COVID-19 or just COVID-19. It can have either one or it can have both. Now let's say you needed it to have both. You didn't want it to have just one or the other. AND would be the operator that you'd want for that. The AND operator forces it to give you results that have all of the terms specified. So that's pretty handy if what you're searching for has multiple different terms to it, or if you're looking for multiple things, linked things, etc. The next one we're going to use is the wildcard. So the wildcard is, I haven't really used it much, but it definitely has its uses. So the asterisk, also known as the star, is called a wildcard. So if you search asterisk corona, everything that comes up is going to probably be corona related. There isn't probably many other words for corona. Let's do good instead. Good is a good one to do. So using the asterisk will basically mean that everything that comes up might have the word good, but it might also have a synonym for good. Or, as you can see, it bolds the results. So this one, it was searching for a good. This one, it was be good. This one, for good. So you can see it's including other words that might not specifically be good, which is good. So a very, very useful search operator is the parentheses. So if you do a parentheses encapsulating a search term, and then you search for something outside of that, unfortunately, we didn't really get any results with that. That was a pretty specific search operation. Let's remove Canada from there. So the parentheses, what that does is it encapsulates, just like it does in math, some operators. So we're telling this that we want that specifically searched together. And if we add it in here, now it's going to search those all together. So that's going to be searched and that's going to be searched rather than all of it being searched at once. Now, of course, you can keep bunching. So this would mean that you want it to have COVID-19 or coronavirus, and you want it to be a PDF, or it can be on the CDC site, either one. So you could probably imagine that that's a very helpful search modification tool, the parentheses. Let's search for another one. Let's say you wanted a specific date. Oh, I might have broke Google. Well, let's just try it like this. There we go. So as you can see up here, this is Google's cache of Facebook.com. It is a snapshot of the page as of 9th of April 2020 at 1845 GMT. So the whole point of using a cache is, say you searched for a website and it was broken, but you knew that yesterday it was working. Using the cache function will show you yesterday's version of the website. So although it might not have the updated information from today, you can still see the website exactly how it was from the day prior. Now, the next tool that's quite handy is the location modifier. By using the location modifier, location colon, and then the location, you can search for things that specifically have to do with that location. As you can see, the search results are in Canada. It's very handy. You can search anywhere. So as you can see here, the ending of this website is .co.nz. NZ is, of course, the New Zealand domain. So the location modifier is handy if you want to look for information specific to a geographic location. Yeah, so those are the basic modifiers that I use. Of course, there are many more. There's quite a few more actually, but all you really need to do is search Google search operators cheat sheet. There's quite a few handy ones. This isn't the best resolution, but it gets the point across. There is a lot of search operators. So moving on, what if you want to see if a website is credible? I mean, there's so much information online, there's so much misinformation online. How do you know who is releasing what? Well, that's where MediaBiasCheck.com comes in. So if we go MediaBiasCheck.com, this website is very frequently used, moderately credible. I mean, there's of course research that you might need to do if the website you're searching for isn't very commonly used. But for almost all major conglomerations, local news companies, etc., it's quite credible. It's quite useful. So an example of that would be, let's search Huffington Post. All right, so the Huffington Post. Huffington Post has a heavy left bias, as we can see here on the bias line. And they're mostly factual. So mostly factual is actually a pretty bad ranking. That means that they do quite often have non-factual information. So below we can kind of see a bit more of a description of what that means. Left bias, the media sources are moderately to strongly biased towards liberal causes through the story selection and or political affiliation. They may utilize strong loaded words, wording that attempts to influence an audience by using appeal to emotion or stereotypes. They publish misleading reports and omit reporting of information that may damage liberal causes. So the Huffington Post is probably not going to be a very great news source. Let's try the CBC, for example. That's a wonderful, wonderful place. Wonderful news source. So they're left-centered. These media sources have a slight to moderate liberal bias. They often publish factual information that utilize loaded words. So loaded words, you have to take that with a grain of salt. Basically, that means that whether it's liberal or conservative, it's going to tend to favor causes relevant to them. But the factual reporting is high, which is very important, because the factual reporting is basically telling you that although they may be reporting stuff that furthers their causes, what they're saying is still true. These sources are generally trustworthy for information, but may require further investigation. Now, the further investigation basically means that you might need to do some fact-checking. What about fact-checking? How do you fact-check? I mean, it's quite a lot of work phoning scientists, phoning organizations, checking reputability of scientists and organizations. Thankfully, a lot of people already want to find all that information, and they do have the tools and time to do it. That's where factcheck.org comes in. If you can spell it right, it'll help you a lot more. It's the pro tip right there. So factcheck.org is basically a conglomeration of information on fact checking. So we can see here Trump's claim on IG Wisconsin election, the science behind shifting COVID-19 face mask advice, the HHS Inspection General Report. So these are all journalists or researchers that are taking the time. Laura Robertson, for example, took the time on this one to check into the facts laid down by another previous claim or article. Now, the reason this website is so handy is more often than not, they will tell you who wrote it, what their association is. This person is a managing editor for factcheck.org. And that'll come in handy when you mix that in with the media fact check site, or media bias, sorry. So if we go back to the media bias check, and check factcheck.org, we can see that they have very high factual reporting and they are the least biased. So already that tells you this is an incredibly reputable site to be using. But not everybody that publishes on here works for factcheck.org. Let's take this article, for example, by Jessica McDonald. Jessica McDonald is a SciCheck writer. Well, what about SciCheck? Well, it looks like SciCheck is a pro-science website with very high factual reporting. They don't have a bias because they don't have a political agenda. Being a pro-science website, they're focused only on scientific reporting. So once again, very reputable source. So as you can see, factcheck.org is an incredibly handy tool for checking recent claims or even past claims on controversial topics or new topics. Not everything is going to be on here, but it is a very big step in the right direction in finding good information and fighting misinformation. Through the tools of search operators, factcheck.org, and mediabiascheck.com, you will have a much easier time proving whether or not something is credible, trustworthy, or just a load of bogus. Thanks for tuning in.